Welcome to another edition of the Wednesday night live stream here on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. I'm Joe Cook. I got Justin Wells with me, got Eric Naleen with me as well. Another great edition. Excited to be here. Fellas, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Anxious to get to it. We got plenty to discuss. Spring ball's right around the corner. Lots of recruiting stuff going on, happenings, lots of videos getting pumped out. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Glad y'all could be here. Like Sonny V said, hit that like button. Helps us out a lot. Helps us bring a lot of great content to y'all on a daily basis. Today, we'll obviously be taking y'all's questions, but we'll go over a watch list of some must-get recruits in the 2025 class, and we'll talk about some of the freshmen and transfers getting their number assignments. This should be a lot of fun, but we got some questions loading up already, and I like this one from Jeff Grimes. If y'all didn't see, Ole Miss Spirit today reported that former Mississippi State head coach Zach Arnett is going to be an analyst for Lane Kiffin, and we saw some questions on the Inside Texas message board. We saw some questions, obviously, on social media asking if Sark went after Arnett as an analyst. Eric, what do you know about this one?
Well, I didn't hear anything about him going after it. It seems to me it would be a very odd fit with the defense that Kwiatkowski runs. Maybe they could talk about some blitz packages, but yeah, I don't see a lot of overlap. Normally when you see analysts in contention, there's something they're going to offer. Like obviously Paul Christ has a ton of overlap with Kyle Flood. That one makes a ton of sense. Gary Patterson filled a need in the secondary that made an obvious amount of sense. Helping tie in the front end and the back end. With Zach Arnett, I don't really get it. I get it for Lane, but I don't really get it for Texas.
Yeah, with Arnett, Rocky Long, 3.35. That's not what Pete Golding does. Maybe Justin, it's just a shot across the bow at Mississippi State, like Lane seems want to do pretty much whenever he gets the chance to.
Yeah, I mean, it's hey, give me some secrets. What can you do? What can you do for me? What do we need to do better? You know, and also there's some really good recruits in the 2025 cycle that I bet Arnett had already built relationships with.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Over the last year. So that overlap, I think Lane's just playing checkers chess like he always does.
We already know about a couple of them, Kalen Deere, Caleb Cunningham. There's some good players in Mississippi that Texas is going to continue to go after, but people like Lane Kiffin and even Jeff Levy are going to make it tough. We got a super chat. Thank you to Brett Nelson. Oh, man, this is a good one. We were just talking about this before we came on air. Faster wide receiver core, the 2023 or the 2024 team. You know, you got A.D. Mitchell at 4.34. You got Xavier Worthy at 4.21. We didn't get to see what Jordan Whittington ran, but that obviously makes a little bit of a difference versus Matthew Golden from Klein Kane, and then from University of Houston, Isaiah Bond, who is Jalen Milroe's big-time receiver. And then, of course, Jonte Cook is back again. So, Justin, I'll throw this one your way from Brett Nelson. Who's got the speed advantage, the 2023 core or the 2024 group?
I feel like an idiot because I think we brought this up not too long ago where I kept saying the wide receiver room added speed. I think I took for granted how fast Worthy and Mitchell were. Now, we knew they had speed, obviously, but nobody thought Adonai was going to pop a 4.34. Nobody. And then, of course, Xavier was 4.21. I feel kind of foolish to not say the 23 guys are faster, but obviously the 24 guys are a little deeper. So if we're doing a relay, I'm going with 2024. If we're doing the 100 or the 200, give me the 23s.
Yeah, I would go. You have to go with 23 after what they did. And Jordan Whittington would have ran 4.4 because, you know, we know that he was one of the faster guys as measured by miles per hour in that entire room. So he would have blasted a fast one too. But I think that they're overall, they're more skilled overall as a unit in 2024. All three of the positions are deep threats, and they're deeper, of course, as Justin just mentioned. So they're not going to sacrifice a ton of speed And I think the aggregate skill level is deeper and better, probably more suited to what Sark is looking for as being able to have 3 vertical threats on the field at once.
Agreed.
I'm just excited for someone like Isaiah Bond. I mean, we can argue about Quinn Ewers where he is in his development, but as a passer, probably a lot better is going, deep, intermediate, short than Jalen Milroe was last year. So
Yeah.
Isaiah Bond's going to have a lot more opportunities, I feel like, not only to show off that speed deep, but also to show it off on crossing routes, things like that, and just to be a more complete receiver. Got to thank our guy, UT Boy, certified Longhorns, all 3 of us. We thank you for joining in as always. Got a great question from Just the Dude. Great fan, helps us a lot on social media and here on YouTube. How is Johnny Nansen doing on the recruiting trail? We've started to see Kenny Baker take off. Obviously, Eric, we talked about this a little bit on a previous video that we put out today on this channel, how Jeff Choate left a good situation for Nansen, but now Nansen's starting to take control of the recruiting trail himself and start to make some inroads with a lot of these different targets, including one we were just talking about before we came on air.
Yeah, Nansen's doing great. I mean, he's in a perfect situation. He inherited Anthony Williams, who's going to take some visits. That's fine. But one tell that we can see that we know he's doing well is he's getting the right guys on campus. And unfortunately, there's a couple of guys that he offered that they haven't been in a whole lot of contact with of late. And so that tells you that they feel a lot of confidence about the guys that they're after at the top of the board. He's in a great situation for Riley Pettijohn. He's in a great situation for Elijah Bo Barnes. Justin will talk a little bit about that in a second, but I don't think you can be any happier than where Nansen is with those guys, and he's going to get a whole lot of players to campus that aren't too familiar with UT. And there's a good chance that one of those guys is going to fall in love or at least make it interesting with Texas going forward. So he's going to knock out a 4-man class. I have zero concerns about his ability in this cycle.
What about the OB we just learned about before we came on air, trying to get that on InsideTexas.com right now? Matai Tagoai from San Clemente, reportedly scheduled to make a trip to Austin this June.
Yeah, he's like Anthony Williams in that he plays edge quite a bit. He's got length like Anthony Williams on the leaner side, but he also plays in between the tackles more than Anthony. He's a guided missile. He's fun to watch. If you don't watch a whole lot of Huddle, go to San Clemente High School in Southern California, and you'll find Matai, Matii. And it's just entertaining stuff. Watch it during a commercial break. He's a hired gun. He's a headhunter. Lots of length, explosive athlete. We'll see if Texas can make it interesting.
I think we said with Nansen too, get Barnes and Pettijohn, get your foundation, and it's almost a guarantee that they're going to get somebody on the West Coast. Like it would not make sense if they didn't. And I think that linebacker is something nice. So we also Nansen, you got to go big out west.
Well, or IMG. IMG has a couple they like. Nathaniel Owusu, Boateng. I would say his brother's a stud linebacker, a safety hybrid player for the Cleveland Browns that played at Notre Dame. He's awesome, very athletic. He's going to be visiting Texas. So honestly, linebacker is one of the best positions they're in throughout the whole cycle. The big board is very healthy. The state is more numerous with options than normal. West Coast is loaded. South is loaded. So, I mean, he walked into a really, really fortunate situation.
Yeah. Trying to think, Justin, about some of the other linebackers. Obviously, Anthony Williams there in the class, but you put in an RPM the other day for RPMs, for a few different linebackers that the Longhorns are after and feel pretty good about it this time.
Yeah, the aforementioned Riley Pettijohn and Elijah Bo Barnes. Pettijohn's your long, rangy guy, kind of like Ty Anthony a little bit, 6'3", running a relay. Then you got Bo Barnes at 225, almost 230, running relays. Those are your two guys. I like Gavin Nix. I'd like to, I've been reaching out to him. I want to hear more about him. He was on campus for Junior Day in late January. He's really close with those IMG guys, and he is a dense, great guy in space. He does a lot of good things well on tape. And so that's a guy I wouldn't mind them jumping in the mix. But yeah, listen, Pettijohn and Barnes, it just makes too much sense right now. I think both have their own stories and both have built great foundations over the last year with the staff. Both have been on campus multiple times. Both have visits scheduled ahead. I think it's Texas versus the field on both, and I feel real confident on those two.
trying to think of other guys to look into, but at least as far as other positions, where might Nansen be doing a little bit of offering his helping hand, kind of like Tashard Choice does in the Southeast? Obviously, the West Coast and even in Hawaii is some of the area that he's into, but where are some of the places that some of the recruitments Nansen may be offering a little bit of assistance to at this point?
Well, we know he's involved in all the Southern California recruits. Pretty much, when you can't always send by the exact position coach to go see him. He's been instrumental with Marco Jones up in the Bay Area, Northern California. I believe he's played a role in Josiah Sharma, who's in Central California, the foothills. But yeah, Marco's one to watch. Marco was a linebacker. That was the one that Jeff Choate had his hooks into as an inside linebacker. But now he's continuing to grow. He's up to about 6'5", 230. So he's destined for edge, but Texas is still recruiting him pretty hard, and we'll see if they can get him on campus. I suspect they will.
I bet Nansen helped out with the portal too. I have a feeling Savea was a good score for him as well. So he's been at it right from the start.
Yeah, that was a big pickup because of what we know about the defensive tackle depth. Justin, I think he said it pretty well in our video the other day. What was it? 1 in 2023 plus 2 in 2024 equals a 4-man class in 2025. And I like that little quip a lot. I think that's going to be used a lot over the rest of the cycle. Just a Dude's got another great question. Of the receivers, is the room more molded to spread the ball around, or will there be a Devontae Smith type season from somebody? And just kind of thinking back on Devonta Smith's awesome 2020 year, that had a great, Alabama receiver core. You had Mac Jones able to sling the ball around, obviously, but Devonta Smith had 1,856 yards and 117 catches that season. The next closest, if I can find it, was, John Mechie, 55 catches with 916 yards. So I don't know if there's going to be a Devonta Smith type season. That was one of the best.
Tough.
That was one of the. Didn't Jalen Waddle get hurt that year, or was that the year before that Waddle got hurt?
I think he did. He only had 28 catches for 591.
There's your answer. Yeah, I remember he played in the playoffs. Everybody said he was crazy. He's risking his career for playing in the playoffs. But so Devontae Smith had that season kind of by default. Now, if Texas had some injuries, obviously somebody's going to be, become the focal point. But as of right now, expect that ball to be spread around. You've got Silas Bolden and Jonte Cook in the slot. Isaiah Bond is going to be to the field, and Matthew Golden to the boundary. I had a source the other day predict that Matthew Golden would lead the team in reception, so I thought that was pretty interesting. We're going to see, but I think they're going to spread the ball around, and they'll get after it to the tight end as well.
Justin, what do you think about that? I mean, the idea of 117 catch season, I think only Devin Duvernay did that at Texas most recently, and just that type of disparity, it seems like there's way too much talent to have that type of just lean on one player. As good as Golden or Bond or any of them may be, it doesn't seem like that's something that's going to pop up this year with Sark.
Probably not in this offense. There's too much talent. There's only one ball to go around. With Duvernay, I mean, he was Ellinger's safety valve that year. Every third down, that's who he was looking at. And so that was a volume type year. But with, Devontae Smith was crazy. Eric made a good point. Like, he wasn't even supposed to have that kind of year. And hell, I think the season before, it's the one where he caught the national the game-winning touchdown in the national championship against Georgia. And so that's actually the most popular thing about him. But with Texas, there's too many guys, too much talent. I think Isaiah Bond's probably going to be the lead horse, but could be Matthew Golden. Jonte Cook's going to get a lot of catches. I watched the replay earlier of the the Texas Tech game with Texas. And, Jonte Cook had a nice little catch from Arch Manning sitting in the zone and wound up picking up 20 yards after the grab. Man, there's too much balance there. Too many good running backs and a quarterback that is he loves throwing to the tight end and loves going intermediate. You could have 3 or 4 guys have really good seasons, but none in a Heisman type year, which begs the question, that makes Quinn Ewers Texas' best chance at a Heisman. It has to be, because there's no A.D. Mitchell. There's no Bijan Robinson. There's no Tavondre Sweat, who should have been in New York, by the way. yeah, Devontae's not going to be duplicated, but man, Quinn Ewers could be in the conversation for the Heisman. I think that's the cool part.
We'll see what Texas does whenever they have someone of that caliber. And the last time they had someone they thought could do that, they started mentioning it in like game notes and season previews with Sam Ehlinger, I think in either 2019 or 2020. They're not afraid to start mentioning it. I think they did it with Bijan as well. But how much they really promote it, we'll see. But yeah, Devontae Smith type season, we may never see another wide receiver season like that again. Eric, you got something from UT boy. Jonte Cook doesn't play the slot, and he plays outside. We've seen that Sark just moves his receivers all over the place, but you've been wanting Jonte Cook to maybe get some action at slot receiver for a while now.
Well, both he and DeAndre Moore play inside and outside, and just doing, just linking the dots here. What position is most vulnerable to Jonte Cook getting opportunity? Is it Isaiah Bond? No. Is it Matthew Golden? No. Is it Silas Bolden, who's not on campus and they just lost Jordan Whittington? Bingo. So he plays inside, outside. DeAndre Moore plays inside, outside. If they're in 7-on-7 right now and they're working both, that wouldn't surprise me. But I know the plan is for him to get a lot of looks at slot.
I like this
punt returner too, probably.
I like this one from Victor Santiago. Who would you say has better offenses, the Big 12 or the SEC? I would definitely say the Big 12. It's a lot different style. I think with the Big 12, Justin, you may be able to attest to this. You see the Big Bang. You see Mike Leach take over in Lubbock and go air raid with guys like Graham Harrell, just all the different quarterbacks they have, just pure 200 proof Mike Leach air raid. You see that spread throughout the conference. Oklahoma embraces it under Bob Stoops. Even Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy, Holgo up at West Virginia. And then you see the next generation of it with guys like Lincoln Riley. Obviously, the Bryles scheme is a little bit of a variation on that, or a huge variation on that. But it's this big bang of like, get the guys in Texas high school football who know how to run the system, who know how to run routes, who know how to catch the quarterbacks who maybe 6'1", 190, but can put it right here every single time. You see defenses start to adjust to that. And now the Big 12 is kind of like a running league almost, to where everybody is kind of in a two tight end, as many surfaces, blocking surfaces as you need. This is a good Ian Boyd question, but who would you say a better offense is, Big 12 or SEC? I think some of that effect of the Big 12 being a testing ground for so many different schemes, both offensively and defensively, is starting to make its way into the SEC, just because of the fact that things that make its way up into the NFL kind of then trickle back down into the college game. Stuff from the Big 12 trickled up to the NFL, and trickling back down into the college game, it's going to go to the SEC first, just because of its standing in the sport.
I think you could make that argument definitely 10 years ago, when all the quarterbacks were going high in the draft and you had so many skill guys going high. I think that the other conferences have caught up to the spread era. They've caught up to things we saw in 2000s and early 2010s. Like you said, Lincoln Riley and those guys, they'll be in the Big 10 in 2 years. And so I really do. I think it's different now. It's just a different background. It's a different environment. I think it's year to year, because now you're seeing these offenses in the SEC. You see what Ole Miss is doing. You see what Jaden Daniels did with LSU and some of the things that they're using RPOs with Milroe at Bama. It'll be interesting to see how DeBoer opens it up, if he's able to do what he did at Washington. And so, 10 years ago, I think you could say, man, the Big 12's offenses were amazing. The SEC's defenses were amazing. We saw a national championship where nobody crossed the 50, man. Like, it was bad. And so I think those days are gone. I think that the sport has evolved so much that we see more of that offense and defense kind of intertwined. It's more cyclical. And so right now, I think it's across the board. I think it's more on a team-to-team, year-to-year basis. And if you're asking me about Texas, they definitely have one of the best offenses in the country. I can't wait. With this offensive line, with Quinn Ewers, with these guys coming back, and now Sark is really confident in what these guys are doing. He's really confident in what these quarterbacks have learned and what they can do on the field. I think this thing is only going to get even better. I wouldn't say Big 12 or SEC, Joe. I think it's so meshed up now. I think right now it's just a year-to-year basis, and I think Texas is going to be one of the top ones.
Here's how you could kind of go this way. Who are the 4 best offensive minds in each league? You know, in the SEC, you would have Sark, Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer, and Josh Heupel probably. Now, if you've got 4 in the Big 12 that compete with that, I'd love to hear it. Mike Gundy, for sure. Who else?
I'm not going to on the Big 12. Dana was out.
I'll give Kitley some credit at Tech. Like I know that a lot of his.
That's a sample, Western Kentucky sample that only worked at Western Kentucky so far.
He's not a head coach. Yet. He's not a head coach calling it. I mean, he's not even qualified on those grounds.
You're right. There's been a lot of turnovers.
No,
Kendall Briles is the worst of his family at running that offense. Like
Kendall Briles got fired.
I was going to say Jeff Levy when Eric was talking about the SEC also.
So yeah, I mean a lot of those Big 12 offenses are kind of, I guess, in their formative stages almost. But I like Kitley. I think he's been kind of hampered by injury a little bit, and you even saw. I mean, think of what it was a couple of years ago, though. You had Garrett Riley. I forget the name of the Iowa State offensive coordinator who just took a job, I think, in the NFL. Gundy knows how to find them. But, yeah, I like that perspective. The top 4 in the SEC are definitely going to outweigh and outshine the top 4 in the Big 12 at this juncture. Going through a couple more questions. I like this one from Chris Brennan. Did Xavier Worthy put himself in the first round of the draft? And so far, the perspective on Texas in the draft has been Byron Murphy, for sure, first round pick, probably a top 20 pick, pass rushing defensive tackle who can play the run effectively at his size, part of a mold of shorter defensive tackles who have found success in the league. Adonai Mitchell's kind of been the second guy, been in that, mid to late 20s range. But now Worthy has seemingly picked up a lot of predictions and projections to the Chiefs, and he might even start being projected a little bit earlier as a result of, running a 4.21 40. So, Justin, I'll start with you. Do you think Worthy put himself in the first round of the draft with his combine performance?
I do. I think he's going to be the last pick in the first round. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to grab Adonai Mitchell at 23, and I've got Kansas City getting Worthy at 32. And if you'll remember, we talked about this on previous live streams and shows. I think Inside the Program, I think Eric and I had that one, which shows every Friday. It's must watch on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. You got to check it out. The thing there is, Kansas City liked Worthy before the combine, and there is a hole there. They've already had 2 receivers released. Obviously, they need to spend some time there. I think Worthy did. I think these NFL teams would like to see him at like 170 pounds. And so maybe he gets a little bit bigger, does the Kyler Murray thing where he puts on a little bit of muscle right before he has to go get on a scale, and then goes right back to 162, which is, I think he's been 162 for 3 years. He's got to be in the first. You don't run 4.21s and don't go in the first round. Did John Ross go in the first round to Cincinnati?
Yeah, he was 12 overall, I think.
Yeah. And he is nowhere close to Worthy from a route running standpoint, from a lot of different things, and a production standpoint. And so Worthy's going in the first round. I've got him as the last pick. Now, I might sound silly because somebody might trade up for him, but him and Kansas City make a lot of sense.
Yeah, the question to me is whether or not he goes higher than Kansas City, because that's everybody had him mocked there before the draft.
Right.
Man, I wouldn't take him over most of the other guys that we're hearing about in the first round. And I've had Adonai ahead of him just because I think he's got a more evolved toolkit. You like the size, and he's fast. Yeah, you're not sacrificing a lot of speed, but you have a whole lot more size. You've got a much bigger catch radius. My problem with Worthy, and I've said this on Monday, I believe, was that he's got a 41-inch vertical. But how many times did you ever see him go up and get the ball and beat a cornerback for it? He didn't make a whole lot of climb the ladder plays. You didn't see him hanging up and making a play in the air a whole lot. So he was fast going in. He's a little faster than we expected coming out, but we knew he was blazing fast. His play speed is, I've called his play speed before he ran the 4.21 40, the best I've seen on a football field. So, he's a little bit faster than I thought, and I already thought he was about as fast as I've ever seen. So I don't know if he improved. He didn't do any of the catching drills, right? He hung it up after that. I'd like to see. Hopefully, he has a good pro day where he looks natural with his hands. I think that would help him out quite a bit because I still think there are some questions about his ball skills and his hands.
Yeah, feel like the NFL won't have to force fit him into a certain role. Like even with the receiver core Texas had, Sark still has to do that because it's the college game. You can't go like grab guys.
Yeah.
You get what you have, and you got to work with them. Got a good question from Brett Nelson. Does Sark have the final say in how NIL is distributed amongst the team? I know it's kind of an interesting question. It feels like it's a yes and no type thing. Like he can't have direct involvement, but I don't know. What do you think about this one, Eric?
I'm drinking.
Tread lightly.
Oh, what? I didn't see the question. No, I'm just kidding. Of course. I mean, let's not be dumb here. Yeah, who else would do it?
It's his voice, right?
Yeah, I mean, who else would have a say in that? That would mean somebody else was in control of the team, really. And that's just not how it works. So I'm not saying he's negotiating deals, but he knows what can be allocated where. I mean, that's just the nature of the game. But yeah, I mean, if he didn't have a say in that, so it's somebody else's team with the way the modern game is.
Feels like, Justin, that it was always, no matter what it looked like, the head coach always had a little bit of like, this guy needs to be prioritized type thing.
It has to be his voice. Eric said it perfectly. It's got to come from him. I think that's why Sark's doing so well. I think that's why the program has consistently got better. I think that's why the culture is better. I think that's why their mental evals on their classes are better. I think that's why their portal takes are better. It's one voice. It's Sark. And again, he can't negotiate that stuff, but he's the one that's deciding who comes in and who doesn't. I mean, we could have a show about guys that we knew were coming in that didn't for various reasons, and that would be one that people really like to watch. And so just understand, Sark's driving this car. There's a reason that's all gas, no brakes.
Got a good one here from Jay Wilson on one of the most athletic guys I feel like on the team. Is Jelani McDonald a true safety or a nickel for next year? Someone who's seemingly bounced around between positions a little bit, but someone who has a lot of potential because of his athleticism. Eric, what do you? He made a switch, I think, midway through last year, right? And that's what he's entering spring as in his new position.
It was he switched in during bowl practices, and so he's at safety. He's a safety. That's the true position for him. Nickel's always going to be a little tough. He's a bigger kid. Nickel's basically a corner. Can he cover like Jahdae Barron? No. Is he a nickel? No. Can he cover well for a safety? Absolutely. He's going to offer a whole lot more coverage and length, tenacity, range than what we had back there last year. And so, yeah, I think true safety fits. He's not as big as I was expecting when I saw him. I think it was last spring, either spring or August. And so I kind of rule out linebacker, and I'm not sure they need him at linebacker.
You were all linebacker last year.
Was it me all linebacker? Hey, I know the internal eval on him, and that's what I thought it was.
I know. And then remember, I watched him and Kobe play corner, and I'm like, hey, he can play corner, Eric.
Well, hey, you want linebackers that can play corner. You see, there's guys, wide receivers that you say, oh, you want that guy a linebacker. But to me, it's about a shape. Your frame tells you where you're going to go. A lot of these guys don't get it. They have and I'm not saying Jelani doesn't get it, but there's a lot of guys that don't understand where their body's going to take them. Like Tavondre Sweat told me he was going to be a defensive end, right? And I laughed at that. As daunting and scary as that was to laugh at him. Just because there's no chance he was going to end up there. I thought Jelani had a bigger frame based on everything I was hearing about him playing linebacker. When I saw him, I started thinking, damn, I'm going to owe Justin an apology on this one.
Justin, just you know Jelani well just from seeing that recruitment very closely, both that one at Waco Connolly and the Kobe Black one. But from my perspective, and I think you know it pretty well, Jelani is just a football player. Like he's someone who gets a simple amount of joy just from being on the football field, and in his entire recruitment never seemed to really care what position he was going to play.
Yeah, I would double down on that, Joe, and say he's a competitor because he's so good at other sports as well. And so, yeah, he's a throwback of sorts. He is willing to play anywhere at any time. And I'm telling you, he's not a bad quarterback. Like he could play quarterback at some of these smaller colleges. He could really spin the ball. He's just a great player. All Syntex best basketball player as a junior. Won the triple jump, won the gold, I think his sophomore or junior year. I just think he's a competitor. And listen, you get 24, 25 competitors in a class, and you stack those classes on top of each other, that's when magic happens. And Jelani McDonald he's just a great competitor, and he's definitely a football player.
Well, that's what partly played into the linebacker evaluation. They said the same thing. I believe his dad played linebacker in college as well, is that he's got that linebacker disposition. And when you find it, you don't want to squander it because most guys don't have that linebacker mentality. And certainly guys that have his athleticism don't typically have it. But yeah, I think he's going to stick at safety, and that's good for the program. That's a bigger need position right now than it is linebacker, because Jelani came in with 4 other guys, and safety is a bigger need.
I did want to get to some of the topics that we mentioned and give some insight on some of the recruits that will be a part of this one. Eric, you have this thing you call must-get recruits, guys that Texas are always going to be after, and that if they do not get them in the class, there is no like-for-like replacement. So this is the watch list, and I think that this is a good group of 4 guys, and a couple who have Texas is in a really good position with. First one is a guy you put in the RPM for yesterday, in Michael Fasusi, offensive lineman out of Louisville. We've got him visiting not only on April 9th, but also coming in for an official visit on June 21st. And I know your process as far as RPMs go, you explained it in our recruiting video earlier today. And when it comes to left tackles, as our guy Ian Boyd can tell you, they are just essential in modern offense, and that's what someone like Fasusi would represent in his recruitment.
Yeah, certain positions you have to have one every single year. You need a true cornerback. You need a quarterback in every year. You need a lead wide receiver. You need an offensive tackle. Every single cycle. If it goes unaddressed, you're going to have to probably find one down the road, or get lucky, or double up the next class. And it's hard to find 2 true left tackles or true offensive tackles in the same class. So Fasusi to me is probably the best one in the state, even though you can make a case for Ty Haywood or Lamont Rogers. I mean, I'm open ears on all that, on that debate. I'm not too super firm on it, but I don't think those guys are going to end up at Texas. So I think Fasusi is their best chance at landing one of those guys. And like I said, you gotta get a Kelvin Banks or Brandon Baker if you can. Now it's getting a bit greedy, but I mean, these guys take time to develop. And all this goes into plug and play. You want to reload rather than rebuild. You don't want those down years. You see these teams have these wild success one season and they go kaput the next year, like TCU. That's because they can't stack depth like Texas can. So Texas, Sark has them on the road to reloading every cycle rather than rebuilding.
Justin, the next member of the must get recruit watch list is from your neck of the woods. Jeff Grimes put it well. Zion Williams from Lufkin. He scheduled his official visit to Texas for June 21st as well. Going to be making some LSU trips, but Zion Williams represents a defensive tackle that Texas needs, not only because of quantity issues, but also because of quality need as well.
Yeah, you only took a few in the last couple cycles. You've had to hit the portal the last 2 years, and you're going into a conference that puts an emphasis on big man play. Yeah, you definitely got to look at Zion Williams. He'd be a must get, even if you took 3 or 4 in a class, or even if you only had one, or if you were stocked up. Zion is a guy you don't pass. From where he's from, for where he grows up, for how he plays, for how he acts, Zion Williams is a guy you got to have in your program in college. You don't let that guy get out of state. LSU is going to be the big guy. Bo Davis built a great relationship there, and that's going to really help LSU. He's going to be there twice before he comes back to Texas, and so that's something to pay attention to. But that first official visit, like he said this morning, that first official visit, that's the one. That last weekend in June, 21st to the 23rd, I think that's significant. I feel like the LSU one is going to be the 14th to the 16th. I think Texas getting the last one will be one of the important data points in this recruitment. I don't think he's in any rush. I think he'd like to have his decision by the end of the summer. And TCU is the sleeper. Not saying they're going to come and get him, but he's got family that coached there, and Jamarcus McFarland. So they're gonna make an effort, and then he's got connections. He's got people to the staff at Texas A&M, so they're gonna put their 2 cents in as well. But right now, that's a Texas LSU battle, and him setting up that OV to Texas first, I think, is substantial. I think Texas needed that. I think Kenny Baker needed that.
Man, I can't hear the name Jamarcus McFarland without thinking of that story. And if you've been around Texas recruiting long enough, you know which story I'm talking about. We'll keep
About to
going
get the
on.
edit out again.
Oh boy, we'll keep going on the last two on the must get recruit watch list. The other is one is LSU wide receiver commit DeCorian Moore out of Duncanville, a guy we've talked about a lot, and I think we've put it this way: a lot of schools have football players who run track. There are a lot of schools who are talented enough to just have track guys, and DeCorian Moore at the 6A level at Duncanville is both. And Eric, that's a big reason why he's kind of on this must get recruit watch list for you already.
Yeah, I mean, she's a complete receiver. We talked about where Xavier Worthy lacks in some ways. I don't think DeCorian lacks really anywhere. I mean, he doesn't have maybe the prototypical length you want, but then he wouldn't be as blazing fast and quick as you'd like. So I think he's the best receiver in the state by far. I think if you rated all the top receivers that came out in the last 4 or 5 years, he'd be the top out of all of them, including Evan Stewart, who everybody are still talking about. Maybe Jalen Waddle is maybe the only one I've seen better than him. And that's
Wilson.
debatable. Garrett Wilson, yeah, maybe. See, I don't know.
Wilson doesn't have his intangibles.
He does. He's not as fast, and he still was faster than people thought. Garrett could jump out and attack the ball. That was he was the best at that. Jalen was impossible to tackle in close quarters, but I think DeCorian just kind of combines it all. I don't know if, at least in high school, I'm not sure I would say Garrett Wilson was better than DeCorian, but Garrett Wilson, what he had that translated to college was he can contort and go up and get it even against really good cornerbacks. That's what got him drafted. I'm not sure DeCorian quite has those ball skills, but there's really not a weakness that I've seen from DeCorian. And on top of it all, he's extremely explosive. So, yeah, Texas has to get him. All the other guys, they're after a bunch of good receivers. I mean, a bunch of them. A lot of them going to be out of state and tough to pluck. There's plenty of good guys in state that are good you can win with. But you don't want to – first of all, you don't want to lose them because you don't want to lose them to begin with. But you also don't want to defend them playing LSU going forward.
And Justin, also, a little secret about DeCorian, if he didn't play wide receiver in college, he could punt. That guy has a leg, and I'm talking Joe Cook level leg. He is the team's best punter. So DeCorian's is just a plus athlete.
Can he spiral it, though? That's the question. Justin, last one on the watch list is someone you're very familiar with all the modern-day action the Longhorns have had, and that's Jordan Davison. A running back from Mater Dei. He's got a Bama visit in March. He's got an Ohio State visit in March as well. But Texas, with Tashard Choice, is still in a really good position with this recruitment as well.
Yeah, Davison's right now in the middle of scheduling his official visit. I bet that thing gets finalized in the next few days to Texas. He's just checking he's just making sure he's going through everything. Davison's one of those that I feel like he was such a heavy Texas lean. The presumption of it, all the websites kind of, proclaiming that he's kind of backed off a little bit just to kind of slow down. But he still, when you talk to him, he still talks to Choice on a regular basis. He still loves Texas. He's likely going to take the last weekend of June, his official visit to Texas. People always ask, who's going to be a next commit or somebody on commit watch. Davison's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he jumped on board before that official visit. I think when they come in the spring, I think that you might see a change there, because Davison's been to Austin so many times, and every time he leaves, I think he likes it a little bit more. And so I think Texas and Davison make a lot of sense right now, and that's trending well. I just think he wanted to slow it down a bit.
We are coming up against a little bit of a deadline here, but I did want to mention the freshmen and transfers getting their number assignments. Always fun to see in the lead up to spring ball whenever guys get their numbers, who they're replacing. Justin, you had a lot of great legwork on this one, getting a lot of the number assignments, and you got a lot of the big ones from the 2024 class. Ryan Wingo, number 5, replacing A.D. Mitchell. Kobe Black, number 6, replacing Ryan Watts. Jarek Gibson, number 9. Christian Clark, number 6. Colin Simmons, channeling his inner Micah Parsons or Major Applewhite. Take your pick at number 11. Parker Livingstone, number 13. Trey Owens, number 15. Jordan Johnson Rebel, taking number 23 now that Jahdae Barron's going to 7. Ty Anthony Smith, number 30. Alex January, picking a classic defensive tackle number with 97. Aaron Butler, number 14, Jordan Washington, number 84, and Xavier Filsaime, number 21. We'll obviously learn a lot more of these, as well as some of the other roster number changes whenever the eve of spring ball arrives. But any of these stand out?
You brought a Major Applewhite and Micah Parsons with 11, with an edge guy that's going to attack quarterbacks before you thought of Derek Johnson?
Hey, that's an off-ball linebacker, so give me a little bit of a break there.
Hey, one of the Dallas Morning News guys quote tweeted me with, "All right, there's Micah Parsons' number." So I'll give you a little bit of that. But the Derek Johnson freshman year impact, Holiday Bowl 2001, that got me going.
Eric, numerology is obviously Paul Wadlington's. May have a doctorate in it, but any of these stand out to you as far as good choices, bad choices, whatever it may be?
Well, I mean, my second favorite football player of all time wore 97, Bryant Young for the 49ers. And so, January is going to look clean in that. Kobe Black at Big 6. I like that. That sounds good to me. The one that really – I like most of them. The one that really stood out to me is like, whoa, what's he thinking there is Ty Anthony at 30. That's a special teams number. So maybe that's his way of saying I'll do whatever I got to do my freshman year. But after that, I'm coming for a different number. 84 on Jordan Washington. That's good on a tight end, especially one that flexes out. So I think overall these guys are showing good decision making early on.
I think Wingo at 5 is one of my favorites. And hey, maybe under Sarkisian, if you're number 5, that may be a number you seek after. You go from Bijan Robinson to Adonai Mitchell, and now Ryan Wingo, who I feel like is going to have some opportunity in his freshman year. Like that's a good pick there. It's a clean number, and one that I think will be his to try to make his own legacy with.
Do you remember how Charlie Strong used to give out numbers to freshmen? He wouldn't let them pick. He would just hand it to them. And then right before the spring game, they could change if they wanted to. Y'all remember Shane Buechele coming out in 16? Yeah. I thought that was hilarious that Charlie wouldn't let freshmen pick their numbers. He had to earn it, the right to pick those numbers. And so that's why we saw so many different number changes right before the first game against Notre Dame in 2016. It's like, wait a minute, I thought these were all different. Yeah, well, they all changed their mind. Charlie used to pick them for him.
I do remember Colin Johnson. We have some pictures of him in those ugly-ass practice jerseys wearing number 87 before.
Was it 85 or 87?
One of those.
I think it was 85, and it was terrible.
No, the practice jerseys were worse. The number wasn't so bad. But I like Aaron Butler at 14. I think having a classic number 97 is a good pick, and obviously we'll
Chris Nelson and Frank Ocam, and I think we would love Alex January. And then number 9 for Jared Gibson. Listen, if he channels his inner Dakari Pearson and really brings out the Dayton, Texas, I'm telling you, the good times are back.
That's a weird one for a running back. But you also said Isaiah Bond is number 7, right? Obviously that works.
Yeah, he's 7, and then Matthew Golden, I believe, is number 1. I think
Bond had to clear that with the estate of Ian Fleming, I think, and it was awarded number 7.
They protect their copyrights pretty well, but that should be a good one. I'm excited to see what the rest of the roster looks like. Our guy Ian Boyd, he tracks the heights and weights meticulously. The other numerology associated with the roster, and that's always as much as you can rely on an official Texas roster that at one time listed Xavier Worthy at 6'1", 172. It's still good to see what they want to announce, what they want to put out, and of course the numbers associated with them as well.
Joe, do you remember Cam Williams? You remember when they dropped Cam Williams? We were at Big 12 Media Days, and they didn't double check any of their numbers. And remember, after like 3 or 4 of them, the weights were just completely off. And remember, we talked to Bianco. It's like, hey, I think some of these, and they're like, oh, well, we took that from their high school. It's like Cam is not 440 pounds, 420. Remember how big he was? It's like, wait a minute, there's something off here.
Yeah, there's always some.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've seen people weigh 2,000 pounds before on those things. Yeah, there's always some random typo. Hey, Victor Santiago, we talked about this right before we came on air. My saying on that was that they should promise that to Nick Townsend, the tight end out of Duquesne, and tell him, hey, look, you're going to be our next Jatavian Sanders. That's already a big reason why you like Texas. Come wear the same number, see if it looks as good on you as it did on Jatavian running through the open field. So we don't know of anybody having it. Maybe that'll change when the roster gets released here in a couple of weeks. But as of right now, we're not sure if anybody has it.
Hey, middle linebacker being number 0 and tight end being number 0. I kind of like that one a lot. Thank you all for watching this edition of another Wednesday night live stream presented by Inside Texas. Head to InsideTexas.com. You can get 1 month of access, which will get you through a significant portion of spring football practices. You'll get a bunch of great insider intel, as well as all the recruiting information that we talked about throughout this live stream and all over this YouTube channel. We can't wait to have y'all over there. Ask us questions there. We love every interaction we get with our members and look forward to y'all joining us. $1 for 1 month. Come check us out. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Justin, Eric, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.